Okay, looks like we are good to go. I need to make sure that every time I do these damn things, my mic is actually turned on. So, with that being said, let's get into today's extemporaneous video. I'm talking a bit about the greatest romance story of all, which is myself and conjugate training. You can see right here, beautiful art, right? I love conjugate. Now, conjugate training, I think it's really important to understand that it's not just West Side. That is one of the things that I think a lot of people get confused about, and it gets really muddled. West Side is an iteration of conjugate training. It's obviously the most famous one. We're all very familiar with it, but you have to understand context. West Side was designed with multiply powerlifting in mind, so it's very specific to that sport. However, if we look at the underlying principles of conjugate, we can apply them to a wide variety of populations and applications. The key principles within conjugate, you want to think about getting stronger, more explosive, and adding muscle mass, and avoiding burnout. And that's one of the most important variables, because if you can stay at this for a long time, you're obviously going to have better results. And in my own personal opinion, I actually really think conjugate shines brightest outside of powerlifting. So let's dive into it a little bit more. All right, so first and foremost, let's backtrack a second. Let's talk about the three efforts really briefly. The three efforts within a conjugate system are the max effort, which is training to strain, build absolute strength. Dynamic effort, which is going to be your speed and power generation, and then repetitive effort, where you're going to build muscle, add volume. Very simple stuff. You can think of this as your heavy work, your speed work, and your bodybuilding type work if you want to simplify it a little bit more. Let's go over each method a bit more in depth now. Now, first and foremost is going to be the max effort method. In most West Side style conjugate programs, training is done to a heavy 1 to 3 rep max using a competition variation, and the idea is you're picking variations that attack individual weak links. So for example, let's say that your triceps aren't the strongest in your bench press, your lockout is impeded, you might train with a 1 rep max close grip bench for that given week. It's also common to rotate the max effort variation every single week. I personally don't do that in my own iteration, but your mileage may vary. But with max effort, that training to strain with a constraint is so valuable because that allows us to determine what is weak and how we go about improving that weak link. Now, with a few small tweaks to max effort, I think we can extract even more benefit for it. So let's go over that next. First and foremost, let's talk about strongman application, because that is what I talk about the most on this channel. One of the things I like to do here is I do multi-rep maxes. And the reason why is strongman at day's end is a sport of repetitions. You're doing however many reps you can for 1 minute. Moving events, if you think about them, are tons of little repetitions. While 1RMs do appear in the sport of strongman, I don't think they should be the focus for most of us outside of peaking for a competition. Additionally, another thing we can do is pick variations that attack and develop multiple attributes for us as an athlete. So for example, let's say that you have weaker legs and you also have a sloppy front rack position. Spend a few weeks on paused front squats, because it's going to help improve your legs. It's also going to help improve your rack position, so you've helped improve your push press as well as your deadlift and moving events all at the same time. We want to develop multiple things whenever possible. Now, let's say you're more of the power building sort. You want to build muscle, get jacked, and be strong. Think about heavy sets of 5 to 8, and then follow up with some back off sets. And this doesn't have to be something like a barbell back squat. Let's say you want to build your quads, use a pendulum squat. You're looking to build your upper chest, it could be dumbbell incline press. Remember, when we attack weak links, that's going to be contextual. So if your weak link is your upper pec development, then we want to pick variations that allow you to build that section of the body. Now, let's say you're a BJJ athlete. You might consider something such as a camber bar good morning for a heavy set of 5. This is going to teach you hip hinging mechanics, build your posterior chain, as well as help your core to stabilize movement while you yourself are moving. Because if you think about it, your opponent is external movement and you yourself are the internal movement. So the camber bar, due to its instability, allows us to attack both of these things at the same time. It's also probably not going to beat you up as badly as a deadlift, which means you're going to have more energy for your actual main sport. Ultimately, with max effort, something to keep in mind too is we aren't just looking to set PRs every single week. We are training to strain and seeing where we deviate, where we break down, so then we can strengthen that specific part of our body. And that's usually where repetitive effort comes in, which we'll talk about a bit later. But let's talk about the next part here, which is going to be dynamic as well as developmental effort and how I break the rules. Now, with dynamic effort, it's speed, control, and longevity. Traditionally, DE is just speed, 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 which is highly beneficial. It's going to help improve fast twitch muscle fiber recruitment. It's going to just help you focus in on being explosive. If all you do is lift heavy and slow, you become slow over time. Now, something conversely worth mentioning too is for a lot of folks who do run speed work, they'll often treat it as a light or easy or active recovery day. I think this is a bit of a mistake, because even if you are training with lighter loads, to get the most benefit from speed work, you have to treat it as though it's a max weight and accelerate it with peak intent. So just keep that, celebrate it, what am I saying? Move it with peak intent. You have to be really locked in, because if you just limp into your dynamic effort work, you're not going to extract the maximal benefit from it. In much the same way, you'll see people say, oh yeah, sets of 8 to 12 are best for building muscle mass, but every single set they look like they're reading a book. They're not extracting maximal benefit from that particular part of the training system. Now, with dynamic effort, obviously I talked a bit about speed work. That's going to help improve fast twitch muscle fibers and increase your power output. But other things you can do in lieu of speed work with developmental waves, for example, is something such as a slow eccentric wave or even a pause wave. And I'll talk about the applications of that on the next slide. Just a quick little read for you right there. So now if we talk about dynamic or developmental effort work, let's talk about strongman first and foremost. Instead of speed deadlifts after your speed squats, for example, you could replace the movement entirely with something such as stone loading here, because the stone load is a movement that's similar to a deadlift, but not quite the same. There is a lot of RDL adjacent type movement to it. But if you are doing heavy deadlifts on the first day of the week, you might not be up to deadlifting twice a week. And this also allows you to train your stone load after speed squats, which are a great primer. Additionally, what you could do here for strongman is, let's say that your dip and drive mechanics on your log push press are a little sloppy. We might do 3 weeks of slow eccentrics on your dip drive to help dial in that rack position as well as how you come down. Then 3 weeks of paused dips with your log push press. That way you learn exactly where your stop point is as well as how to get that powerful reversal into the push press. And then 3 weeks of speed work thereafter. So these weeks will be lighter, of course, because it's 3-week blocks, but we're helping improve every facet of your push press. The downward, the reversal, and of course the extension, which means a better push press. So you are developing a better strongman athlete with the lighter load here, whereas on your max effort day, you might do movements such as a rack lock out or floor press to help improve your tricep development. Now, let's say you're more the power building sort. Instead of doing speed bench press, you might, for 8x3, you might do something like a 5x5 slow eccentric or long pause bench press. And the reason why is that's going to help reduce the acceleration and reversal force your joints and tendons are taking. So if your shoulders are feeling a bit beat up, you can get some benefit there. Allow yourself some recovery. Now, let's say you're a BJJ athlete and you don't have access to accommodating resistance, but you still want to train explosively. Consider doing something such as a box squat paired with a box jump. That way you're going to get that explosive hip extension, and then you can also train the triple extension to get the key benefit of dynamic effort work, which is just that, acceleration and reduced need to train so heavy. Because this is going to make it so you also recover a bit better, because the lighter loads in terms of absolute weight, regardless of whether it's a developmental wave or a dynamic effort wave, come in very handy for managing training fatigue across a week. So that's how we talk about that. All right, next up, repetitive effort at day's end. You're just building muscle, supporting strength, and looking the part, because who doesn't want to look more jacked and impressive? In general, with repetitive effort, I do like to push sets close to failure to maximize the muscle building response as well as muscular endurance. Something like 30 reps with a banded tricep press down might sound silly to certain populations, but for others, that's going to help with tendons as well. That forces a lot of blood into the connective tissue. And then on something like a Viking press, when you're doing those ultra high rep sets and you have to just gut out that last quarter inch and it's already been 11 reps, you might be very thankful you've done some high rep work via isolation on the triceps. Now, as far as why it matters in applications, for strongman and powerlifting, you're just building more muscle mass, which creates a wider base of support to support high peaks in strength. It's why you'll often see like bodybuilders, for example, or physique athletes, when they switch over to strength sports, after some adaptation and learning the technique, they can get strong really friggin' fast, which is highly beneficial. Now, for power builders, obviously it's literally half of the word, so you gotta build muscle. Now let's talk about BJJ athletes. This is going to help with metabolism, joint protection, and overall longevity. Additionally, you can use movements that strengthen odd aspects of your sport. So for example, the landmine rush and twist not only builds core strength, it does so in a rotational manner, as well as helping improve hip stability under rotation. So with your repetitive effort work, think about building not just individual muscles, but aspects within your sport. So for example, like on the yoke run for strongman, do some work for your traps and your upper back. That way you can support that giant freaking yoke on your upper back and you're not just getting crushed underneath it. Build a stronger midline so you don't fold on your squats. For power builders, just get jacked. That's what you're trying to do, right? And musculature isn't just for aesthetics. Again, it also helps as a bulwark, helps fight us against injury, makes us more resilient overall. And as far as programming repetitive effort work, higher reps in general, 8 to 20 is a good place to be. You can go as low as 5 if you'd really like, but personally for myself, if I think about something like a 5 rep on a skull crusher, my elbows start hurting right away. I would sooner think about going a little lighter here, but chasing higher reps and intensity. That way I'm not turning this into max effort work and I'm not running myself into the ground or overloading my joints. Density techniques such as rest, pause, and drop sets are really fun to throw in here. If you go onto my page, I have a lot of accessory work protocols that you might find valuable. And again, repetitive work and accessory work are kind of synonymous with each other. Same with isolation. They're just terminology. This is just where we're building muscle, building our base, right? Now, as I'd alluded to earlier, you take a physique athlete, they can adapt quickly and build a lot of strength, but it's the other way around too. You take a strength athlete, and once they learn how to control the weight, use those slower eccentrics, reduce force on their joints, and squeeze more out of it musculature, they're going to be able to build a lot of muscle mass very quickly. And I think that's what I like so much about Conjugate, is it tries to rectify and unify all of these aspects of training: strength, speed, skill, and musculature, and allow us to train all of them in a way that is very enjoyable and very fun. While it may not be as optimal for one specific given goal as, say, a true bodybuilding program for those of us who want to add muscle mass, or a true specific 1 rep max peaking program for those of us who are just chasing 1 rep maxes, I think there's something to be said for trading a little bit of optimal for a whole lot of fun. And that's one of the biggest things that I think Conjugate has going for it, is it's a very fun and cohesive way to train, and you can really make it yours and highly individualize it. So for example, I've got one guy, he's strongman and power building type. His lower body dynamic effort day, he's doing speed squats, and then I've got him doing sandbag runs. Whereas on his lower body max effort day, he's doing heavy deads, but then he's doing a whole lot of stuff like leg presses, split squats, lat pull downs, so he's going more power builder on that day. It allows us to train multiple dimensions in a way that makes sense. And what's nice is, as you adapt to the system will adapt to you, because you're going to figure out your best survival path in a Conjugate framework. This also does lead into what's coming up next. Down the road, I am working on a new ebook, the Conjugate Tacitus, Rubicon Tacitus. Damn it. Okay. The Tacitus. Okay. The Rubicon Tacitus. There we go, Mark. Yes. 4th time's the charm, yeah. Rubicon Tacitus. And what this ebook is you can think of this as sort of a sequel to my old book, Ortus. And Ortus was, 3-day-a-week programs for the everyday athlete, the combat athlete, as well as sort of the functional sport athlete. This one's going to be 3 times a week, full body Conjugate, and I'm going to be aiming it at combat athletes, so there will be a template for them. The everyday, kind of every man who's looking to do a bit of everything, where they want to build muscle, get stronger, and get more fit. So it's CrossFit adjacent, but I'd say it's more like blending strongman and power building. A true strongman iteration, and then a surprise 4th template. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I'll let you know. So either way, you're going to have an everyman strongman power builder template, a BJJ type athlete template, a strongman template, and then for the 4th one, let's go ahead, surprise, surprise, we're going to make it pure power building. So there's going to be these 4 different 3-day, 3-week templates in Rubicon Tacitus that I think you folks might find very useful. Anyways, this is just an overview of one of the greatest love stories ever, which is me and the Conjugate method. I'll see you folks next time.